Morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's webinar. I'm Helen Walshe, one of the flexible work specialists at Employflex. Here we're based in Clonakilty in Cork. When we started these webinars back in April 2020, little did we realise that we would still be doing them in a online capacity 10 months later. But there's positives to that also, in that we can leverage some guest speakers across Ireland and further afield, really, which we have done. And and we get to do more of them, really, and the attendance then can be higher as well. So there's some positives there. So what we do at Employflex in a nutshell is we find flexible work for professionals. Any form of flexible work around remote, which has obviously been a very top of mind in the last year, and compressed hours, part-time work, any form of work outside of the kind of the 9 to 5. And we also do, and I suppose in the past year, we have done a lot of training. We do a lot of remote, how to manage your teams remotely. Um, what else? Around A to Z of Zoom. Karen was very busy with that last year. And also Karen O'Reilly, our founder, is a keynote speaker across all things flexible work. We're always in touch with the government and around lobbying for flexible work across Ireland. So they're us in a nutshell. Some housekeeping before we introduce our guest speaker, Vicky, who you can see on screen there beside me. I've disabled the chat function so that we can just work off the Q&A section, and I'll manage that at the end of Vicky's presentation to us. This will be recorded and available on YouTube after today's recording. I will also be doing some polls on behalf of Vicky, so just to kind of get a gauge of where you are yourselves around self-care, which is the topic of today's webinar, self-care. And I think we have heard so much around self-care and mental health in the last practically a year and beyond, but more so I think because whatever challenge that COVID has thrown at somebody, I think we've all been definitely thrown some form of spanner in the works, whether it's trying to manage elderly parents and being a carer, as well as sustaining a full-time or some form of role while trying to homeschool. And I think what I've had a little insight into what Vicky's going to talk to us today about, and I'm very confident that every one of you will walk with some very easy, manageable takeaways, that no cost, and just some very simple things that you can do to kind of look after yourself more than you might be doing so today. So I'll just introduce Vicky. Delighted to have Vicky Lawlor of Pivot Coaching on board today. Vicky is one of the newest coaches on board with Employflex. She's based in Dublin and has over 20 years experience in HR. She's a qualified life, business and executive coach since 2011 and a qualified trainer also. She's really interested in the area of work-life balance, diversity and supporting returners. She has worked internationally across several industries and experienced life as a working mother. Through this life experience and her empathetic and supportive coaching approach, she is able to understand and coach her clients without judgment. So Vicky's business is called Pivot Coaching. So it's an online coaching and training business. And as I mentioned, she supports ourselves, Employflex, and our clients through remote individual coaching to help them make work for them. So I'll hand it over to you there, Vicky, now, and you can share your screen.
Okay, hi everyone. So I really appreciate your time today. We'll probably be here for around half an hour, and I'm just going to share my screen now so you can see my presentation. Okay. Now, let's bring this up here. It's a little bit slow sometimes. Okay, so I'm hoping everyone can see that.
Yeah, that's good, Vicky, thanks.
Great, okay. So the topic today that I'm going to talk to you all about is self-care during a pandemic. And I think this is a really important topic. Obviously, a lot of us have really felt the lockdown this time round. The novelty is completely worn off, and a lot of us are completely exhausted. I hope through the presentation today, you'll be able to take away some practical tips, and you'll get this half an hour to yourself in the day as well to really reflect and honour your own self-care routine. There is the opportunity, as Helen said, to ask some questions or participate as we go through if you choose to. So Helen's already done a bit of an update about me, which is great. So I'm not going to bore you with the same, but just to say I do remote coaching. So I use Zoom a lot for my business, and primarily I work with people who are looking to pivot their careers, hence the name of the business. So that's people returning to work, looking to change career, or looking to return to education and balance that with family commitments. So a lot of my clients are really interested in that whole area around work-life balance and helping that fit in with their lives as well. And this is where the area of self-care comes in. So I'm really interested to know, how are you? And people ask that question all the time, but really, how are you? What I'd love to try, if technology allows us, Helen's going to try a little poll to see if we can put genuinely how we're feeling. The answers to this are confidential. And what I'm hoping people will do is rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 10. So if you can now have a look at the poll that should be in progress and rate yourself. So 10 out of 10 is I'm feeling fantastic, never better, top form. 5 out of 10 is I'm struggling, I'm okay-ish, I'm getting there. And I suppose at the lower end of the scale, it's really bad. I know I need to do something. I just can't find the will, the motivation, the time, or the energy. So that's great. So I can see there the poll. A few more responses are coming back in now. And Helen will end that poll in a moment. Great. So most people are in the middle, which isn't surprising, I suppose, from that. So 5 out of 10 is where most people are, around 30% there. So it's really good, I suppose, to see that there is some level of self-care happening, but maybe not as much as people might like. There are obviously some people either side of that scale as well, but there's nobody at 9 and nobody at 10, but there's nobody at 1 either. So that's good. So I'm going to just stop this here now, and hopefully we can close this poll down. So let's move on. Now we know where we are, we should be able to move into the overview of what we're going to do today. So during this short webinar, what I hope to do is just give you a little bit of an overview about self-care. Through my coaching practice, I see this as a fundamental element when I do career coaching with people, because you have to look after yourself and you have to start putting yourself first, particularly if you're in that process of looking for a new job. You need energy and you need motivation. So today we're going to cover a number of things. We're going to go through some self-care basics. We're going to look at why you need to put yourself first. And then we're going to touch on a couple of other key aspects, as you can see there. Some things not to do. We're going to talk about that morning routine and evening routine, and just some really practical ideas around self-care as well. And we're going to close the webinar then just with some thoughts around self-care and then a deep breathing exercise to finish. Okay? It's so weird not being able to see your faces, but I hope you're all still with me. So I don't know about you, but lots of people, great, somebody's raised their hand, so that's okay. And lots of people's average day at the minute looks like this. I'm sure you can identify. It's like Groundhog Day at the moment, and the days are just merging into one. Waking up, lots to do, lots to organise, and then your day is probably a pattern, like most people's, between homeschooling, working, trying to manage the house, trying to manage other people that live with you as well. And it's peppered, probably like my house, with meal times. Everything's about food at the minute. What's for breakfast? What's for lunch? What's for dinner? It just feels like a constant battle in terms of that food preparation, food shopping, and the days are merging into one. And what's really difficult as well, I suppose, is trying to find that bit of time in between the day for yourself. And that's where we can struggle. So I'm going to just move on to some self-care basics, and I'd be really interested here to see if you've got any ideas as well. So my mantra really around self-care is that self-care is selfless, not selfish. And I'm just going to repeat that again. Self-care is selfless, not selfish. And what I mean by that is self-care really is a selfless act. By looking after yourself, you're enabling yourself to look after other people as well. So these are some basic ideas here. So I've mentioned a few. You may do some, you may do none of them. I know I don't do all of them consistently at the moment, but they're good fundamentals to have in place. So basic things like body brushing and body scrubs. Lots of you probably have a quick shower, in and out, that's it. But spending some time on a skincare regime is really important for self-care. Putting on a bit of makeup, particularly if you feel now you don't need to leave the house. Makeup isn't just for other people, it can actually be for yourself as well. Same goes with nail polish, fragrance, wearing perfume around the house, even if you're not leaving it, can lift your mood too. So self-care is about you as much as it is about other people. And really, self-care basics comes down to anything at all that helps you feel a little bit more human. So I'm hopeful, Helen, that we'll be able to do something in the chat section or the Q&A section, just if anyone's any ideas around self-care that they want to share with other people on the webinar, they can add those to the Q&A section as well as we move through. Okay. I can see a few coming through here at the moment. So feel free to add any ideas that you have around basic self-care. Helen's going to be picking up on the Q&As and the questions as I move through the presentation, and we can always recap these towards the end just to share the knowledge between the group. So I touched on this a little bit earlier in terms of why you need to put yourself first. And ultimately, you are the center of your house, your family, and you are the only constant thing in your own life. And I think this is a real mindset shift for some people to really understand that they are the constant thing. So everything else can change. Jobs can change, family circumstances can change, but you are there all the time. And that's why self-care is important. And that's why you need to put yourself first. Because you've all heard the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. And that is really true, particularly during a lockdown situation in a global pandemic. I find if you don't have energy yourself, it's very difficult to give that energy back to other people. For most people, they'll find who are on this webinar today, they are the glue that holds everything else together in the home. And by that, I mean, they're the linchpin that keeps things going. They are the button that fastens everything together. It's like the glue metaphor. So if you're not present and able and around as much as you can be, it's very hard for other people to function around you effectively. And I've also mentioned the ripple effect. Particularly if you have children at home, I think it's important for them to see that you put yourself first, that you spend some time on yourself as well, and doing activities that are just for you, quiet time, some self-care routine, because that shows that you place value on yourself, and that also sends out a strong message to anyone else in your home around the importance of looking after yourself. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, great. So I'll move on here to things not to do. And I'm just going to look at this slide here, just in terms of these are typical pressures that I hear from people in terms of when you mention self-care, they really think, I don't have the time to do this. They feel guilty and they give up very easily. And really, they feel pressure from lots of different avenues. Pressure to spend that time on themselves when they could be doing other things. So they use excuses. They think it's a costly exercise. They don't have the money for it. They don't have the time. And really, when there's so much to do, it seems to some people like a waste of their time, spending time on their own self-care when they could be doing 1,000,001 other things at the time. And sometimes people think, why me? They might feel unmotivated, they might feel overwhelmed, and they might not place that value on themselves either. And that's why they don't do self-care. So I'm sure that you can identify with one of those reasons if you're not practicing self-care on a regular basis. Maybe more than one. I'm not sure. I know I've had this internal dialogue for many years, thinking that I'm too busy. But I realise now through experience that really self-care is an essential part of being well in yourself. And that's being well physically and being well mentally. So I'm going to move on to some fundamentals of self-care. And they say a lot of these are common sense, but you'd be surprised how many people really don't do all of these. And these, I would say, are core building blocks in terms of self-care. A good night's sleep is really essential and particularly difficult, I know, if you have young children who don't sleep. I've been there, I'm a mum myself, and I know the pain and torture that not having a proper night's sleep can bring. I also know that some people don't sleep very well who don't have young children, and that can be due to pressures themselves in terms of work, family pressures, or it can be due to financial pressures, and their mind is wearing. So you really do need to try and get a good night's sleep. And that is an essential part of looking after yourself in terms of self-care. Proper hydration is important, and everyone knows drinking water is good, but how many of us actually do that? In all honesty, you know the answer yourself. I'm guilty of it. So what I have to do is have a water bottle with me at all times and refill it during the day so I can keep track of my own water intake. Good nutrition is important. I think everyone's put on a COVID stone with the lockdown and the lack of activity, but it is important to look after what we eat because that fuels our body as well. And we will always prioritize other people, probably more so than ourselves. I know for me, I've always given my kids fruit to eat, but I probably wouldn't eat the fruit myself. What I've learned is that I have to start looking after myself as well, the same way I look after other people, and start building in those good nutrition habits. So I'm a great believer in everything in moderation. So ice cream, biscuits, pizza, that's fine on occasion. I'm certainly not advocating any diets or elimination diets. But what I'm saying is the fundamentals of good, healthy eating are really important in terms of self-care. Movement is a key element as well. And the reason I talk about movement under self-care is because we as humans are made up of such a high percentage of water. So we're made probably 60 to 70% water, depending on what site you reference. And anyone will know that water, if it doesn't move, it becomes stagnant. So think of a pond at the end of a garden. There's no movement in it, no activity. It just stays there still all the time. Eventually, what will happen to that water? It will grow a film of moss or algae and it stagnates. And I like to think of that in terms of us as humans with water, because if we're made up of so much water, if we stay still and we don't move, we can feel sluggish as well. Whereas if you take the example of water, like a waterfall, something that moves, something that has energy, it's vibrant. And I like to think of that as well in terms of ourselves. So if you incorporate movement into a self-care routine, a brisk walk, bit of fresh air every day, it does re-energize yourself as well. I'm sure you'll agree. Breath work is another area that I touch on in terms of self-care. And this can be an important element. It appeals to some people, as does meditation, mindfulness, journaling, and practicing gratitude, writing down 3 things that we're grateful for each day. So I mentioned at the beginning that we'll talk a little bit about routines, and you've probably heard about these morning routines and evening routines. And there's some key examples here. A lot of them, again, may seem like common sense, but you'll be surprised at the amount of people that don't incorporate all of these things. Smiling is well known to bring positivity into your day. And wearing clean clothes can seem like an effort if you're not leaving the house, but it does make you feel better. Even getting changed out of a tracksuit or loungewear into something else can have a huge impact in terms of self-care. I love music, and I do think that listening to good music can help lift you as well in terms of your own energy and your own vibrations. And playing a particular tune can help revitalize and re-energize you as well. Other people really value quiet time, and that might involve getting up earlier in the morning, maybe earlier than other people in the home, and spending a bit of quiet time journaling, having maybe a hot cup of tea, and just having some time to reflect on the day that's ahead. Lots of people like to practice yoga or stretching during this quiet time, gentle activity, or maybe read. I've heard that some people light a candle in the morning as a ritual to signify the start to a new day. And other people use the opportunity to journal as well. So I'm just going to take a break here for a minute and stop sharing the screen. Okay. So does anybody have any questions? Let's just have a look here. We're talking here 100 days of walking, I can see in the questions and answers section. So that's really good. And we have a couple of other comments as well there. You want to touch on any of those,
Will I go?
Helen?
Yeah, I will. There's some really nice ones that have come in around self-care, bath, reading books, um, time to eat your own meal on your own. I think that's a good one. We end up fending for everyone else. That was one from Fiona. Lots around walks, podcasts. Actually, it's a great one. Podcasts and audible books or audiobooks. Meditation. I'm laughing at this one from another Fiona. Leave-in conditioner. It's like a treat. And then of course food-based ones. One of our attendees recently bought an air fryer, life changing, she said.
Right.
Using cookbooks. Slow cooker is another one. I'm a big fan of
Yeah.
slow cooker. It's just great when you can smell that food and it's only noon or 11 or 1 o'clock in the day. 100 days of walking. Quite a few people are after embracing that. It seems quite manageable within the month. That's quite good. And Tommy and Hector's podcast. Somebody recommended this to me recently, and it's a real laugh out loud. It's brilliant for a bit of downtime. Yeah, so there's some nice ones. And what else? I think we all revolve around food. I think I'm
Yeah.
because I'm meal because I tend to try and avoid going to the shops more now. I'm meal planning, which means I'm like, okay, now I know what I'm eating every day, but I just need to learn, Vicky, how to socially distance myself from the fridge.
Oh, I'm with you on that one. I know. I think a lot of people are
Snack
finding
central.
that. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, I'll move back on to
Um,
the other routines just
okay.
to push through those, just because there's a few more little things to talk about here. If I can just bring this back up here. Hang on. So we've spoken about this morning routine. The evening routine is similar, but the key thing here is to take your phones out of your bedrooms. So if you take nothing else out of today, I would really recommend this as a practice for you. Obviously, trying to limit your screen time before bed is important, but taking those electrical devices out of the bedroom is good. So buying an old-fashioned alarm clock, that can work wonders as well. And from a self-care routine as well, I'd always encourage people that are wearing makeup to not leave it until the very last minute to take it off, to spend some time on that practice before bedtime, before they're absolutely shattered as well. There's a few ideas for self-care which you can have a look at on the screens here as I just move through them. And what I've tried to do is bunch them into a few categories, because different categories appeal to different people. So anything creative and movement related is really good for self-care. So people have mentioned that 100 days of walking, which is great. And there's some other ideas here that you might want to incorporate. I've heard through my dealings with different clients that lots of people like to dance in the kitchen, put the radio on or put their favourite tune on, and it just makes them feel better. And I also do encourage from that walk-in thing as well to get out in the daylight if at all possible. I know if you're working from home or working remotely, it can be difficult to find that time in the day, but you will benefit obviously from being out in the natural light. Even in Ireland, we do get an odd bit of sunlight during January and February. So it is important to try and get out as much as possible in the fresh air. Other ideas for self-care are anything related to sound and scent. And this can be a key sensory experience for some people. So this is using essential oils or diffusers, cooking or baking, maybe listening to the radio. So somebody had mentioned podcasts already, which is a great idea. And simple things like fresh flowers or bath bombs, they can invoke good feelings in terms of self-care. Anything related to connection is important as well. And that's connecting with friends, connecting with relatives, however you choose to do that, a phone call, a text message, a video. Or I'd encourage from a self-care perspective, writing is really good, and sitting down and spending time thinking about somebody through the act of writing an actual letter. You'd be surprised how really gratefully received things like that are. And then anything related to your own space as well. So decluttering is a big one. I don't know if any of you follow Marie Kondo's method of decluttering rooms, but that's a great idea. Her series is up on Netflix. And getting fresh air into your home, changing bed sheets, maybe a salt lamp, just things that impact on your home environment as well. And I put mending broken items because often if something's broken, it preys on your mind as well. So once you've fixed it, it's gone out of your mind. So that's an element of self-care. It stops the clutter in your mind as well. And then I've moved on to small indulgences. Self-care does not have to cost money, but you can spend a little on yourself. That's allowed. And I'm not talking a huge amount of money. I'm just talking small things, but small things that mean something to you as well. So there's a few ideas there up on the screen, even if it's something as basic as a takeaway coffee and you sit on a bench on your own for half an hour. That's classed as self-care as well. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Or maybe you swap a book with a friend. I've done that recently and posted a book to somebody and they posted a book back to me. So it can be anything small, just something that appeals to you. So the key is consistency. As with any practice, the more you do it, the better you become. And small steps in terms of self-care every day add up. I found through my work with clients, coaching them one-to-one, that as they develop a practice of self-care, they become calmer. Their mind becomes less busy, and they in turn become more patient and more able to deal with what the day throws at them. And really, it helps you get a sense of perspective on things and helps you see the wood for the trees. So just because you have a bad day doesn't mean you have a bad life. Start where you can. That would be my underlying message from today. You don't have to be doing everything. Just do small steps every single day. So we're going to finish before we talk about the questions and answers and the comments, just with a little bit of a deep breathing exercise. It will just take a few moments. And I would encourage you to try and do this as much as possible. I'm going to read what's on the slides here, but I'm hoping that you will all close your eyes if they're still open. I can't see whether you're closing your eyes or not. So if you don't do it, you're only cheating yourself. So look, if you can, please close your eyes if they're open. Take a few big, deep breaths in and out. And as you breathe in, imagine that the air is filled with a sense of peace and calmness. Try to feel that throughout your body. And as you breathe out, imagine as the air leaves your body, that with it leaves any of the stress or tension that you've been holding in. Now, try and use words or phrases as you do these inhalations and exhalations. As you breathe in, say quietly in your own mind, I breathe in peace and calm. As you breathe out, say in your mind, I breathe out stress and tension. And we'll just do this 3 times. I breathe in peace and calm. I breathe out stress and tension. I breathe in peace and calm. I breathe out stress and tension. And the final one, I breathe in peace and calm. I breathe out stress and tension. So you can open your eyes. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your time. I know life is very busy for everyone at the moment. I'd love to connect with you further. So if you do want to find me, you can look up my website. You can connect with me on Instagram as well, or you'll find my details through the Employflex website. So I'm going to stop the screen sharing now and go back to Helen as well, just in terms of any comments that any of the participants had today, or just to close off. Okay.
Brilliant. Thanks, Vicky. Well done. And there's lots of compliments around your soothing voice, Vicky. And people are
Good.
saying you're beautiful. They could listen to you all day. You actually do have the perfect voice. Your kind of meditation video. Sometimes if I'm trying to sneak a nap at a weekend, and I'll throw on some meditation, your voice is perfect for that type of thing. If you're looking to do a little nixer on the side. No, well done. That was really great. And I think that's what I love about it. Some simple things that we might not have spoken of. As you were further speaking, a few people added in, they love a smelly candle or a takeaway coffee as a treat, or just some letters as well. I think we all love, as you mentioned, we all love to get any kind of post. And my kids, even when the only excitement is when they hear something dropping in the post, and they're dying to see if their names are on anything. And it could just be those unpost postcards that have been rotated again. I think we've been given a few of those. Yeah, so some really great ones there that I think we can all start immediately. I'm going to start with a few questions. Oh yeah, Jenica is one of our regular attendees. She's just saying, and another excellent one. She felt like she missed them over Christmas. That's nice. That's nice to be missed. Yes, loads compliments on your voice. So I'm going to pull up
Oh,
some
that's lovely. Thank
questions
you.
here. Vicky, what is your advice for those days when you feel flattened and just have no energy?
My advice would be to just start with one thing. That's what I would say. So I'm a great believer in writing things down and journaling. So spending some time emptying your brain of everything that's on your mind, writing it down. There is a practice called the morning pages, which is 3 pages of writing every morning when you wake up. And it's when you wake up because it's to deal with your subconscious brain. But I would say just do one thing. If you feel completely frazzled and overwhelmed, just concentrate on one thing. That would be my advice.
Okay, that's nice. That's a nice tip. I think, and just accept and just say, okay, tomorrow will be better, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Give yourself a break.
Yeah.
There's a lot of juggling happening at the moment, and I think us women particularly, we just have permanently got a to-do list going on in our heads, don't we?
Absolutely.
Of what's next.
Yeah.
Another nice one that one of our attendees does is laughter yoga. That would be great.
Oh,
I've never tried that
I've
actually.
tried it. It's great fun.
Sounds like we need it. And I realized recently I was laughing at something with my kids, and I realized, God, I haven't had a big belly laugh in a long time.
Yeah.
That's really sad. So I said, God, I must change that straight away. Any book recommendations around motivation and mood? Is there any?
Oh, that's a tough one, because what I like somebody else might not like, I suppose. So that there are lots of these self-help type of books, and what I'll do is
That's all right. We won't hold you to it, Vicky.
No, I will send those
Yeah,
on to you,
thank you.
so you can have a look and you can send them on to people in terms of what you'd like.
Okay.
What I'd say in terms of books though is choose something that you're interested in. So don't feel that you need to follow a particular book or a particular author because everyone's talking about it. Different books resonate with different people. And so I would always recommend that you find your own path in terms of those kind of motivational books. and choose something that appeals to you. I will go back to you with a couple of recommendations of ones that I've read recently. But I think ultimately, as much as those non-fiction books are good in terms of that whole motivation piece, sometimes just losing yourself in a good fiction book can be really, really useful as well in terms of that peace and self-care routine.
That's good. We'll to our attendees, we'll send around that list to all of you
Yeah.
after. Any tips on keeping cool with the kids? Mine are 6 and 7. Mine are similar ages. I didn't write that question. um,
I would love to say I'm a parenting expert, but I'm not. But there are 18 months between my two kids, so I know what that challenge is like. And I think the sense of perspective is really important, and realizing that this too shall pass. I said that to myself a lot when my kids were younger, and particularly when you're very busy and you're very stressed yourself and you have a lot on. I think the whole routine of self-care, taking yourself away from a situation if it's safe to do so, even for a small amount of time, can be good to replenish that well a little bit and just help yourself feel a little bit more patient. So I would say go out for a walk if you can and leave the kids with somebody else for a little bit of time and try and prioritize yourself. That would be my own personal advice, because when you come back into the house after 20 minutes, you'll feel a lot calmer. If that's not possible,
yeah.
what I would do is I would try and break up that routine a little bit. So distraction is a great thing as well. And building in rewards when they're younger. Kids love working towards something as well in terms of achievement. So I think the whole rewards and stickers, or however you decide to do it, it is a really good motivational tool for younger children.
Yeah, I definitely
Okay.
feel for whoever was asking that question, because I have similar age kids who are currently Netflix crazy downstairs and bribed to the hills
Yeah.
to not disturb me here. But yeah, sometimes it's even just the night before, writing a little to-do list with them. Okay, we'll do a little bit in the morning, and mommy's going to do some work,
Yeah.
go for a walk, and then you guys do your bit of work. And if we do X, but also it sounds really daft, but I have like kids these days have so many toys and puzzles and everything, and they forget that they
Mhm.
have them. So at night time when they're in bed, I actually bring out some things that they mightn't have pulled out in a month or two, and then they see them on the kitchen table and they're like, oh wow, and next thing I have an hour of peace and I can
Yeah.
disappear and do a bit of work or what have you. So
And
yeah,
I
and
think
you know, you
that's
said that,
important,
you know,
keeping that
go ahead.
timing as well, because kids like games and time. So even setting something up for 15 minutes and say, for 15 minutes we're going to do whatever it is, you find kids get lost as well when they're enjoying activities. So I think that can make things more fun for them as well when they're younger.
Let them get bored. I know you could be driven demented by some people, you know, some you know, great people on Instagram, and you're like, how do you have time to even set up all these activities if
Yeah,
you're trying to manage a job and all of that?
I
But
think you're
you
doing
know,
a
you
great
said
job.
yeah, exactly. Listen, give yourself some credit. And I actually just ordered recently a print with Seamus Heaney's. You know, if we winter this out, we can summer anyway. I love summer
Mhm.
anywhere. I love that one as well. I think it's a really nice one. I think it'll be one that'll be framed, but we'll all always remember this crazy time when we look back at it in years to come. Um, okay, any meditation tools that you would recommend, books or apps or anything like that, Vicky?
Yeah, Headspace is brilliant. It's an app, and Calm as well. I think there's so many of those initially free meditation apps that you can get for your phone. That's what I'd
Yeah,
recommend.
you can trial
But
them.
if you don't like that type of thing, certainly on YouTube, you can look up guided meditations and you can find different ones as well. That's really useful. So it does depend on what you want. Or Spotify has certain playlists as well that you can look at. Um, or you might find a particular person that you really like their voice and you go back to them time and time again. So there's plenty of resources, but the apps, the popular ones on your phone, like Headspace, I think are really good.
Great, that's good. Um, how do I stop being so hard on myself? I find it hard not to have a clean house, great dinners. It's hard with kids being around.
Yeah. I think that's what most people feel. So the first thing I would say is absolutely you are not on your own feeling like that. A sense of overwhelm, of trying to be perfect for everyone all the time. It's impossible. And I think what you need to realize is to give yourself some credit for getting through the day, for managing as you have done, and for doing your very best. And that's all you can do every day. So things don't have to be perfect. I think it's around prioritizing what you can and really getting done what you can. So going back to what I said earlier about this one thing, what's the next thing that you can do? And just focus on that. It's not about burning out yourself, because going back to self-care, if you don't have the time to look after yourself and you don't have that internal energy, you can't give that to other people as well. So in the bigger scheme of things, does it really matter if the dishwasher isn't emptied before you go to bed? Probably not. You could do it in the morning. It's yourself that's saying you have to do these things sometimes. I find we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And maybe if we ask other people that we live with, or delegate some tasks, or realize, does it have to be done or not, or can it wait? That can help us with that internal dilemma of feeling we have to do everything. I know for me, certainly in terms of housework and things, that would take a second or third step in terms of my priority list when I really think about what's important. And obviously the kids and the health and happiness would come higher up in the list for me. And it's around realizing I can't do everything. I can't be present with the kids when they're homeschooling and keep the house really tidy as well. So some things just have to wait.
Mhm. Good. And the positive is
Okay.
nobody's visiting at the moment, so it's okay. So
Well, true.
nobody's visiting your home at the moment. It's not the worst thing. Yeah, I know. I'm the same.
Yeah.
Like there's always the guilt there. Rachel, one of our attendees, mentioned Insight Timer is a free app, and there's relaxing music on it,
Mm-hmm.
and you can set the time that suits you, just 5, 10, or 30 minutes or longer, as well as some guided meditation. So Insight Timer is a free app. That's another good one.
Great.
Thank you,
Very
Rachel.
good.
Lots of thank yous. Thanks, Olivia. This is. Some people have just taken this 45 minutes as their own bit of self care for today, while Peppa Pig is playing in the background.
Great idea.
Jenica asked, "How could I increase my motivation both mentally and physically?"
I think for that piece, you have to sit down first and you have to work out what motivates you. So if you're looking to increase your motivation, you have to come back to what do you enjoy and what do you like. And I think that will help feed that creativity as well in terms of replenishing the well. So often I find if you're lacking motivation, it's because you don't have energy or enthusiasm for something. So go back to things that you enjoy, things that you like, things that maybe you did as a child that you don't do now. So it could be even something like baking or painting or some arts and craft related activity, something creative that you haven't done maybe for a long time because you feel so overwhelmed. I find setting goals is really important, but also spending time doing something that you actually enjoy. Because once you're in that sense of flow and you're in the middle of that creative exercise, you feel a lot better yourself and you come out of it more energized and more motivated. But in terms of lists, I'd be a big proponent of writing lists and prioritization. And that's what I do through coaching with people. It's all around that accountability piece and working towards realistic goals and overcoming challenges. But it's also about working on things that you want to do. Everybody has pressures, demands from other people, demands from work, but really putting something on that list that's for you is important as well. Something that you want to achieve, something that benefits you, and that helps with your internal motivations as well.
That's a great answer, Vicky. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose the physically pieces, yeah, I think that's kind of covers both. Jenica, I hope that's covered it for you. I think the rest are all just lots of thank yous and compliments to you, Vicky. One lady actually
Great.
is looking for you to, I don't know if this is possible for you to do. Where is it gone? She was looking to, sorry, maybe it's in the other section. Can you show the connection screen for self-care tips again? Is that something you could pull up, Vicky, or else I could maybe, if you allow me to share that one page to the guests, maybe that's the easier thing to do after.
Yeah. Yeah. If do you want to share it afterwards yourself, or do you want me to bring it up now?
To share that one? Is it
Yeah,
doable for you
that's
to find the
absolutely
connection?
fine.
Yeah, go ahead. And you know
I
what
can
I'll
try
do?
and find it. Let me see.
You do, and
I'll
what
try
I
and.
will do is tell our attendees what's going on next week. In the meantime,
Yeah,
our
perfect.
next speaker is Joe. Yeah, great. You go ahead. Our next speaker is Joe Brown. Joe Brown of solid perfume and all those beautiful diffusers. It's kind of fitting to the self-care, you know. I got a beautiful gift of her diffuser, and you know, there's a sleep oils and all these different types of oils, and they're just a nice treat to put on in the office whenever you're having a little bit of downtime. So Jo Brown is, yeah, so her story is great. Her story, and she's all, you know, sustainability and all of that. So she is going to be our guest speaker this time next week. The time is to be determined, but we will give you a heads up in advance. And Vicky, are you good? Did you find it?
I did. I showed it. Yeah, did you see it there? If not, I'll send it
Oh,
on to you. But yeah, it should have come up. So,
perfect. Sorry, I was busy yapping. I didn't.
or if that person wants to
So
email me
Mary,
separately, I can
that was
send that on
perfect.
to them.
Mary, hope you've.
You have a
Yeah,
copy of the slides
that's
anyway,
perfect.
Helen.
And yes, so yeah, I could give that piece if you're okay with sharing. And let's see, Mary's after Mary. Yes, she's after. Thank you. So that's perfect. Thanks, Mary. So listen,
Great.
Vicky, thanks so much. Like you've a wealth of information, and as people have said, I they could listen to you all day. You definitely are after finding the right calling in terms of your coaching and your new career path.
Good.
Thank you again, Vicky, for all the effort you put into today,
Not at all.
and thanks to our attendees. And hopefully we'll see you guys next week. And you know where to, Vicky is Pivot Coaching, and you know where to find ourselves in Employflex, Karen and myself, Helen. So listen, have a good week. Look after yourselves. Make sure you take something
Great.
on board and take a little bit of downtime for yourself, even if it is just that 15 minutes every day. So thanks a million. Take care.
Great.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thanks
Take
again,
care,
Vicky. Mind
everyone.
yourself.
Bye. Bye-bye.